So on today's video, we're going to be checking out the new Cort X700 Triality guitar. This was sent to the channel on loan so we could get an early access to it. So a couple things. So obviously this is the X700 Triality guitar. It's reminiscent of their Duality guitar with some different features. So let's go over it. Of course, the first thing I want to point out is it has a very Kiesel look, definitely Ibanez Kiesel look. So let's talk about features. We have a graphite nut. We have 24 stainless steel jumbo frets. We have a roasted maple neck, so it's roasted fretboard with a 3-piece roasted neck that is quarter sawn with 2 walnut stripes. We have a volute, so very strong neck. And then we have Cort branded locking tuning keys, and this is made in their Indonesian factory. Something to know about Cort guitars: they're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year as a company, and they've made 24 million guitars as a company, and producing over 1 million guitars a year currently, which is just crazy to think of those numbers. It's just a crazy number to think of. Okay, so it also has a spoke wheel truss rod, and what's cool is you don't have to worry about what Allen wrench is the right Allen wrench, or even take it in for service. This is a truss rod that anyone can make adjustments to and pretty much not mess up. We have a ash body, and this is where it gets a little different. Where you're used to seeing, like with what companies like Kiesel or Ibanez have done, is you have an ash body and then there's a veneer right here. This is a piece of veneer. This wood would be like flame maple. This is not a veneer. You can see the grain lines going right through. This is the solid piece of ash, but they've stained it this way. I actually like that open grain, so the ash is very porous and feels raw. And one thing that's nice about that is I think this will age well. When it looks like a little worn in, it's going to look really cool, I think. They're using the Fishman Fluence pickups. So you have a humbucker and 2 singles, which means you have 2 push-pulls and a 5-way switch. This is their Cort branded bridge, the CFA3 tremolo, very Goto-esque in my opinion. The tremolo arm is a push-in. Unlike the Goto, it doesn't push in and then screw in. So it has an adjustment Allen wrench right there to tighten the tremolo arm, which is very important. So it does have that feature. It is shipped standard with Diodario EXL 120. So these are 9-42s. The pickups are the actual Fishman Core Classic pickups. And that's pretty much the specifics of the guitar. So with that being said, let's get into the geeky stuff. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure the guitar is in tune. It is. We're going to check the relief. We're going to push down on the 1st fret and then down on the 24th fret and see how much play there. There's a little bit of play right there, so there's just a tiny bit of relief in the neck, and that's absolutely fine. Necks can be dead straight, and they can have a little relief. There is a lot of opinions on that, but what I will tell you is it's always determined by how the guitar plays. So if the guitar plays great and it feels great and you don't have any dead spots or buzzing and you're happy with the guitar, whether it has relief or not is not a huge deal if it's not an extreme amount of relief or extremely too straight. In other words, it's got backbone. Let's check the action. So let's see what they did. And this is a good idea to always check the action in the playing position. And we're going to go ahead and measure it. And somebody asked a good question. They said that Music Nomad tells you when you check the action to push down the 1st fret, then check it. Okay. And StuMac says not to. There's different strokes for different folks. I tend to not push down the 1st fret. It's not something I care about, but you can do it either way. So without pushing down the 1st fret, we have 1.5 millimeters or 0.06. Pushing down, we're going to change that to 0.04 and 1.25 millimeters. So there's your answer either way. So there, if that helps you guys. Let's go ahead and see how well they intonated it. So checking the intonation. We have 2 strings. The B and the A are slightly sharp and the rest seem fine. So overall, I would say that this would need a small adjustment to the saddles for intonation. I have a video on how to do that, and I'll put a link down below. So pretty good out of the box. I would say for most players, this would be to the point where you could play it and not notice anything. Some players that go right to the recording studio and want to record with this and want the intonation to be exact may need a slight couple adjustments. Let's check the nuts. To do that, we can just push down with our ring finger on the 3rd fret, using our 1st finger to see how big the gap is. And the gap is, there's a little bit of a play right there. So we would want it to have no play. There's no play on the, actually on the A string. There's no play on the D. There's no play on the G. No play on the B. And no play on the high E. So the only one that's a little off is the low E string. Has a little bit, that nut slot can be filed down a little bit. Now I've said this many times that if you get a guitar and the nut slots are not cut deep enough, that's actually good. When I say good, I mean it's better than if they were cut too deep. So ideally in a perfect world, you just want the guitar to be played out of the box perfect. So why is this important? We always cover this. It's because especially if you're playing like a barred F chord, what's going to happen is it's just going to be a little hard to push down. And in this case, because there was a little bit of relief, if we were to just do a slight turn on the truss rod, we may not have to actually cut that slot. It might fix itself by straightening just a little bit. But here's the deal. The action is low, so it's playing fine. Let's go ahead and see if there's any high frets. Let's get a pick here and see if we have any high frets. Okay, right at the end. So 22nd fret on the low E, a little bit of fret out. So there's a little bit right there, so one spot. That can be corrected. We could use a fret kisser to do that, or we could see if it needs to be tapped in, but the frets are seated really, really well. We'll get into that in a second too. Let's go ahead and see how the fret sprout is. See how well they polish the end of the frets. Now the frets look really polished, but they're not like super rounded. So let's go ahead and see how that is. Okay, let's go ahead and do. Okay, so a little bit there, you can see a little bit right about there. You see, and that happened right here, right in this area right here. Yeah, you can see right there. So a little bit, they're not sprouted, they're just not rounded over to where the sock is not catching. So that's definitely like a 3 out of 5. Let's do the bass side. And the bass side is definitely like a 4 out of 5. I mean, it looks pretty good. So pretty good. Not amazing, but pretty good. Let's go ahead and use the same sock, if you don't mind. And this is something else we like to check, is to see how the bridge feels. A lot of players are concerned that when they're playing, let's move this, that the bridge, it kind of pokes your hand, scratches your hand, does all kinds of things. One thing I want to point out is that they went ahead and used the correct screws in the, in the saddles. So look, they're not sticking out. This is an issue. You have a video coming very soon of a guitar that's almost $5,000 where they're just really shredding my hands up because they didn't do that. The corner is a little sharp, but it's not catching the sock. Overall, I think if you're a palm mute player, you're not going to find any issues with this bridge. Another thing that's interesting to point out is they installed lumen-lay dots on the side, which is really cool. It looks like the frets are going to the end of the fretboard, but they're not. What they did is they cut the ends of the blades off and set these frets in, and then they just used inserts into the slots so you can see the lines. And so you're not going to probably deal with a roasted neck like this and the fret blades being cut shallow of the ends of the fretboard. It is most likely, even if the neck was to shrink a little bit, you're not going to see any frets sprout at all. That's why I said, that's why I think it did well on the sock test. Which means if you were to take a little fret ingress file and polish a couple of those spots that I showed you earlier, I don't think you'd ever have an issue with this. Looking at what we have here is a 3-piece body. So this is a 3-piece body. That's obviously to cut costs. Weight-wise, the guitar is coming in at 7.5 pounds. We have what's called the handshake here, where we hold the neck right where the neck and the body meets to see how comfortable it is. Not only when you're playing up here, but to see what you might bump into and what it feels like. Obviously, it's very rounded right here. A couple things to note, though, is it's still pretty thick. They didn't go at an angle here. So this block is rather thick. It is actually every way with the contours here and the extended down here. it's still very comfortable. Like I said, I don't want to allude that it's not. It's super comfortable, especially there's more carving than you can really perceive. It's really kind of rounded over, really cool. Another cool thing to notice on the guitar is that the cavities on the back are recessed into the body. I know some of you guys have hang-ups about whether they're top mounted or not. I always point out I don't really care. Okay, let's take some measurements of the guitar. What we have is a 25.5-inch scale, just like a traditional Fender Strat. The width of the nut is a 1/11/16 or 43 millimeters wide at the nut. Let's go ahead and check the 12th fret. And at the 12th fret, we are 52.7 millimeters or 2.075. Let's go ahead and look at the neck thickness. And that shows me that this neck thickness of the first fret is 20.69 millimeters, which is 0.814. If I go to the 12th fret, and it's going to show me that it's 21.48 millimeters or 0.845. We're going to go ahead and see what kind of carve they did. When we're checking the neck carve, what we have, it feels like a Fender 60s Strat C that has been flattened. And when I use a 60s Strat rounding template, that's exactly what it looks like. You can see right here, there's just a little bit of a gap. And then if we go to the first fret, it's almost, I mean, look at that. That is exactly the Fender 60s Strat. Just think Fender 60s Strat, but a little flatter. So a couple things we would normally do is we would test the pickups and see how they're, but these are active pickups by Fishman. If you've heard Fishman pickups, you know pretty much what the specifications. We'll look inside the back of the pick guard. Let's go ahead and do that now. What we're gonna see is the Fishman kit. You're gonna have the two push-pull potentiometers. You have a super switch right here, which has 2 rows. That's how you're gonna get all the combinations. We'll go through that in the sound sample. Then what we have here is the back plate shielded? The back plate has shielding foil on it. And then what they did is they painted the inside of the cavity. They shielded it. The paint looks like it's covered and there's not huge gaps in there, although I do see one little gap. But they went over the lip too, so that it can make conductivity with the back plate, which is good. Tremolo cavity, obviously because they're using 9-gauge strings, they use 2 springs, so everything looks tidy there. Like I said, it's executed well. The guitar is executed and put together very well. I would say as good as any guitar I've had on the channel when it comes to the fit and finish. And that's obviously a company that makes 1 million guitars a year. They're gonna have that dialed in, that's for sure. So let's go ahead and see how it sounds, because that's really the most important thing, right? How does it play and sound when we play it? So first thing I wanna go over is all of the choices that you have for tones, because there is a ton. So running right now I'm running the guitar into a Fender Supersonic 22 into a 112 with a creamback, mic'd up with an SM57 and a room mic to give you an idea what it sounds like in the room. And I'm going to just go through a ton of the features of these Fishman pickups. Now the first thing is obviously you have a humbucker and 2 single coils. So let's go over the 5-way switch without doing anything kind of strange. Just keep it easy. So in the first position you have a humbucker. Okay, in the second position, you're going to now have a single coil for the humbucker. So this automatically splits to a single coil, and the middle pickup will be single coil. So you get that kind of little nice, little spanky. In the middle position, you just have the center pickup. Now in the fourth position, you're going to get the two single coils, which is your neck and middle. And then of course, the fifth position will be your neck single coil. Okay. Now, with the volume control right here, if you pull up on it, it's a push-pull, pull up on the volume control, what's going to happen is it's going to coil split your humbucker. So your humbucker, coil split. Okay, now, and that's pretty much all it does. And then the tone control, when you pull up on that, what it does is it converts the humbucker to a more PAF style humbucker. So instead of being so aggressive, yeah, That's nice and subtle. So we'll go through the tones. First thing I want to let you know is that the bridge is full floating, and when I first got the guitar, I did have some tuning instability issues, and that was mostly cleared up with just polishing the nut with some lubricant, and that kind of took care of everything. So I just want to let you know that happened. Now what's great is when you push and pull these the tone control and the volume control, you don't have to worry about any new kind of switching combinations or anything. Just like I said, they kept it pretty simple. Really love that. Middle position. And number 4, which is a beautiful one. Okay, this is a good time to talk about the balance. Man, the guitar is beautifully balanced, just sitting in your lap. Now I know, what about on us with a guitar strap? It's actually just as balanced. I mean, the balance on the strap is very good as well, and that's mostly because of the design, how the horn is. But just the weight-wise, it's not back heavy or front heavy. Like I said, obviously, if you put it like this, it's going to be a little top heavy. But when you center it, pretty much straightforward. You can see it's pretty good. Let's go to that neck pickup. These Fishmans just sound so organic for an active style pickup. Okay, before we go to overdrive tones, let's go ahead and check the tremolo. And one thing I do like about the tremolo is how it floats, is for the fluttering, kind of. I mean, you can get pretty bouncy with it. But if you dive bomb, oh, it stayed in that time. It's about 50-50 on the dive bombs, so just be aware of that. Let's go ahead and switch the amp over to the overdrive. So let's start with the bridge pickup in the higher gain setting. In other words, what I mean by that is the more aggressive sounding pickup. Okay, now this is your PAF style bridge. I feel like some of the bite came off. What about that coil split bridge? Here we go. Oh, that's awesome. Let's clean it up. Nice. You notice it when the volume's backed off halfway. It's more noticeable. The pickup change from the more aggressive to the less aggressive PAF style is more noticeable when the volume is backed off. that neck pickup. Okay, so how about some final thoughts? The bridge works great. I gotta give him credit, and like I said, it's really smooth in the hands. I have no complaint there. The neck feels fantastic. I love the jumbo frets. The pickups are the star of the show. I mean, I hate to say it, it's just true. As cool as everything else is, the playability, everything else, these pickups just sound really good. And I can see why they picked them for this guitar, because I think it really makes this guitar stand out, especially versatility-wise. So it's for those that basically maybe wanting those $2,000 to $3,000 guitars, and this is just gonna be more obtainable. One last thing before we go, I got an interesting question from a patron. They asked, why is all of a sudden this roasted maple stuff so important? Why do people want it? What is the big deal? And one of the big deals of these roasted necks and why they're becoming popular, first, they look cool. The chocolatey neck looks cool, but this neck, a neck like this, I mean, obviously, you know, with this angle, this 11-degree angle on the back and the volute would have to be out of probably a 4-inch, so a 2-inch by 4-inch board, okay? So they probably wouldn't do that. So it's scarf jointed, or like I said, they did this way with the multi-laminate. If they did this as a scarf joint guitar, and that's probably the important part to think about, if they were to do this with a piece of wood and a scarf joint, that would come from a 1x2 board. And the way you have to look at this is, it takes, for every thickness, that we're talking about the thickness of the boards, the neck blanks, for every inch, it takes 1 year to properly air dry that board. And so obviously a 4-inch board, it would be 4 years to get this neck properly dried if it was made out of one piece. But doing multi-laminate and roasting it, get this guitar built faster, but give you the same stability in the neck. In other words, the neck's not gonna just, you know, bend and warp on you and twist. Obviously with the truss rod, the multi-laminate, the quarter sawn, and the roasting, you have a lot of stability in the neck, and that's how they're able to keep the guitars. They can make more guitars quickly and get you a better quality guitar in a faster period of time. And that's really the name of the game when it comes to guitars, is speed. How fast can you make these things? Because when you look at guitars sometimes that are super expensive, it is how long things were staged and how long hands take, you know, to get this done. So on that note, I'm gonna let you guys go. As always, till the next time, know your gear.